I've actually got a fair amount to talk about today before we get into today's episode. First off, this is what I would like to call the fuck Spotify part of this. Some of you have noticed and pointed out to me that episode 19 of this podcast was missing on Spotify. I got a couple of people who let me know about this, which is great because Spotify sure didn't. So here's what happened. Spotify issued a takedown for that episode. I'll get into the reasons why, but the first problem in the fuck Spotify part of this is they default to sending an email that you've had a takedown done against you. They email that by default to the podcast host, in my case, transistor.fm. That's certainly something you can do, but it's not going to reach me, so I have no way of knowing that I've gotten that. I only found out that that's even what happened after a lot of failed attempts to try and just make minor tweaks to the episode to get Spotify to reread it from the RSS feed. I had no idea why it wasn't showing up. So once nothing was working, I got in contact with them, and eventually, after working through a bunch of chatbot nonsense, I was able to find out that there was a takedown issued against this episode. So all I had to do was appeal the takedown. The instructions would be in the email. Great, where's the email? Oh, we sent it to your podcast host. That's not me, so I don't see that. Anyway, I wind up talking to Transistor, and while this is the fuck Spotify portion of this show, it is the Transistor FM You're Awesome portion. They were nothing but great about all of this. They talked to me like actual human beings. They talked to me pretty much immediately. I am all the happier to have them as my podcast host as a result of this. But they didn't see this email. They looked all around for it. They had nothing. So I'm back on the horn with Spotify, telling them that, how my host doesn't see this email. So for all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist. Can you please, and this is not the first time I had to ask them, can you just send me the email at starforgepod@gmail.com so I can get the appeal instructions so I can just actually appeal this episode? This winds up going in circles for so long where they're just misunderstanding me, intentionally or not, I have no idea. So my thing with Spotify gets escalated a little bit. I wait for 2 days. They get back to me with a new person telling me, go to your host. They have the email. And I have to tell them they don't see it. So whether you sent it or not, it does not seem to exist. So could you send the email to me here at this email that you're talking to me on right now? Or you could just send me the appeal instructions here now. That works too. I don't care. Or this is a nonsensical appeal, so you could also just restore the episode. It's dumb. At this point in time, I was under the impression that the takedown was probably about the music in the show. This wound up not being true, as I found out later. I thought it was flagging my music, which I describe as my music because this is music that I wrote and produced. Maybe you're catching that I'm still a little salty about all this. That was not the reason for the takedown. We'll get to that in just a moment. So they reached back to me after I complained about all that and said, among other things, since you were able to receive the takedown appeal email, have you submitted an appeal for this one? And to be like, no, there's been a fundamental misunderstanding here. I don't have this takedown email. No one does, seemingly. I wound up going back and forth between them and Transistor over the course of days. Transistor really stepped up. They spoke to Spotify on my behalf as well, trying to get them to just resend the email to them. Ultimately, for whatever reason, somebody smart enough did finally read all of this and actually sent me the takedown email to my starforgepod@gmail.com address. Somehow that happened. It didn't seem to be Transistor's doing because I had to tell them that's what wound up happening. So I finally see the takedown notification with the appeal instructions, and I find out the reason that specifically episode 19 of this podcast got taken down. Let me pull up that email right now. The specific reason they gave was it was possibly infringing the rights of a third party. Detected content. Left Behind by Tim LaHaye, the book series about being raptured. Or I guess not being raptured. So somehow, specifically episode 19 of a podcast, the entirety of which has the name Left Behind, got flagged as being infringing on that book series because it has the same title. I did appeal this as being really stupid and pointed out that nothing about the way I market this is at all similar. Basically, I'm not going to get into all the details, but no reasonable person would confuse these two, right? Only Spotify would think that. Like, they're completely different products. And in addition to that, I provided them the Wikipedia page for Left Behind Disambiguation that showed just how many things were called Left Behind, because, look, it's not like I called this Lord of the Rings or something. Like, it's a very generic name. I'll be the first to admit that. It's pretty broadly applicable. A lot of things are called Left Behind. Anyway, the appeal did go through. They've restored episode 19. It's back. Obviously, y'all are listening to episode 37, so whether or not episode 19 exists is kind of probably not your biggest concern anymore, but this is what I've been going through for the last little bit. It's been fun. But let's leave that all behind. Oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't say that. That might be infringing on a book series. Let's put that in the past. Hopefully that's not a book series. Let's put that in the past and move on to something much, much more awesome that happened over this last week. Because one of the people that told me that episode 19 was missing, that wasn't all they told me. I got an email from Hungry Badger that was a response to one of the prompts. This is the actually, oddly enough, it was the prompt from episode 20. I was asking for a pet using Peaceful and Hideaway. Hungry Badger kind of covers this from all sorts of angles. The idea comes from hermit crabs, ornamental walnuts, and the long tongues of frogs. And I want to stop there for a moment too, just to mention the little detail that Hungry Badger supplied a picture that showed me the little 2x2, quad picture thing. In the upper left, we had the tongue of a frog. In the upper right, we had a person on horseback with some bolas, which will come up later in this description. Lower left, there's indeed a picture of a hermit crab. And in the bottom right, there's a picture of holding some walnuts. I suppose specifically ornamental walnuts. And I part of me wonders while looking at it looks like that one might have been a personally made picture. I'm not sure. Hungry Badger, you'll have to let me know if this is your hand holding these. Are these your walnuts? In a completely non-harassing kind of way. Anyway, the idea comes from hermit crabs, ornamental walnuts, and the long tongues of frogs. A small, slow-moving creature that lives in a spherical shell. They spend time in the wild catching insects with their long tongues and looking for a partner. Once found a partner, they circle around each other, which refines and strengthens their shells. People over time have formed a symbiotic relationship with these creatures and can twirl a pair of them in hand, helping the creatures refine their shells. In return, these creatures can be thrown, their long tongues connecting, to create a bolas weapon to ensnare a target. See photo attached. And I thought that was so cool how many, not only did you come up with a creature, but really thought of the way it would fit into society, which I responded to you as much about that, but I thought it was really awesome. Wanted to share it with everybody, and it reminds me, I haven't done one of these prompts in a while. If you're listening to episode 37, then I clearly haven't done it in a little while, but reading this makes me want to bring them back. So maybe I'll do another one at the end of this episode, and we'll see if anybody wants to participate in that. Anyway. This has been way too long of an intro. I just had to get some stuff off my chest, and let's go to the intro music. Stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emil Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emil's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Starforge series. The last episode was one with a lot of threat of violence in it a lot of the time. We started off with Emil and Splinter locked inside of the shipyard on Taiga while there was an invasion from the people of Vega that had brought down the energy shield. They were trying to work their way in. Skipping over some of the details, Emil was able to get a signal out to the Beowulf to basically come into town and be a big display of heavy gunnery and drive off the invaders, because they were under 100 people invading with conventional weapons versus a combat-ready starship. So they ran off, it was no problem. The idea was that Emil and Splinter and the Beowulf and all of that were going to stick around for a little while to keep the invaders away while Sigil was able to get their energy shield back up. But it turned out the invaders actually did come back with heavier weaponry ready to take down a starship. And that was enough of a threat that, particularly with no real personal benefit to it all and other things to do, Tycoon commanded Emil, like, get back on board the ship, we're leaving. So they left Sigil to be almost certainly taken over by Vega, and were off on their way back to Umbra and back to the Blockade, where they found that the members of the Blockade were still kind of investigating the Stardust that had been left behind. They thought that was a good opportunity to maybe do some trickery, connect to the Stardust, get it to drive them off, but their plans went awry, and instead the members of the Blockade, the Imperium, was able to determine that the Beowulf was there, and the Beowulf was the reason behind all this trickery, and based on their having looked into it before, they know that these ships have connected with each other. Emil and the Beowulf had to come up with a new plan, which was basically to lure them all into a short distance with Emil on the outside ready to give a big EMP pulse. With the Beowulf systems all shut down, they were going to try and knock out that entire blockade after having lured them in, and use that opportunity to just do a blockade run while they were getting their systems back online. Unfortunately, that's not how it played out. It turns out that at the very least, the Imperium ships that are forming a blockade, they have protections against these kinds of EMP blasts. They have secondary systems that were able to come back online, switching on even faster than the Beowulf was able to get their systems back online. And so we left off with the Beowulf being kind of a sitting duck, not having even fully gotten its systems back online to try and run this blockade, when the Imperium was ready to start firing on them, having noticed that this was definitely an attack. So we're going to pick back up there, but first, particularly since we're doing a little bit low on momentum, let's see if we can maybe put together a little vignette to round out this begin a session move. What do we want to see here? I kind of want to take a look at, this is completely unrelated to this situation, but since I mentioned it, let's just get a little bit of an update on, like, the situation on Sigil. You know, once the Beowulf left, what does it look like now that they were just helpless against Vega? So we're back on Taiga, and I'm going to keep this relatively short, particularly because it's not really relevant to our current situation. It's just like a little glimpse over here. If this were a TV show, it would probably be entirely without dialogue. There's just some sad music and some miming that demonstrates that, you know, the Vega Raiders are on the inside of Taiga, and they're all heavily armed. And at this point, you know, they've moved in their entire population. And this dome just doesn't support a functional doubling of the population. So we see all these armed people ousting the people of Sigil. You know, we see some of the faces that we grew familiar with. You know, we see Static in there with just like whatever he can carry being hustled at gunpoint outside of the dome itself. He's joined by, you know, countless other people that are in the same basic situation. They're all just carrying what they can. The dome comes back online and shuts them out from the inside as Vega has just kicked them all out. We do see, however, there is one other familiar face that is still on the inside. A gondola comes down from the mountains, and out of it steps Mongoose. One of the people of Vega escorts Mongoose back over to the scrapyard, where Mongoose can start going over the inventory and making notes of the components they'll need to start making their own starship, little personal starship, to get out of here. We see them just itemizing the inventory that they'll need from the system, and a big ol' smile forming on his face. And that's it, just like a little bit of an update over there. I'm going to give myself the +1 momentum, and then we're going to go back to the whole situation here with the blockade. So, we are being basically forced into a combat right now because of our failures, and so that means it's going to be time to enter the fray. So this is going to be, the objective is basically we just need to escape the blockade. We are trying to make it past the blockade, more specifically. Make it past the blockade. And that, I feel like that's like an extreme challenge. Like, we are so outmatched right now. There are a number of different ships that are set up explicitly to stop this very thing. You know, we're outnumbered by ships that are designed for this task. So I want to be honest with myself and like, this is a huge task. We're all alone out here. Extreme challenge. This is going to be rough. we're in the thick of it at close quarters as far as starship ranges anyway. Like the whole point was that Emil and the Beowulf drew them in to be close enough that he could just blast them all with the MP. So we are not especially at range. That means this is an iron move. And, well, we have a +1 iron on it. Let's see. The odds are good that we're not getting a strong hit on this. Let's see what happens. Okay, we did at least get a weak hit on it. One of the challenge dice tried to be nice. It rolled a 1, but the other one was a 9. So we get to choose one. 2 momentum, or we're in control. Now, we're well aware of how there can be a bit of a death spiral of not being in control in this kind of bad situation. So I think I gotta go with you're in control. Hopefully we'll gain momentum along the way. But let's choose that we're in control. And what that represents, the Beowulf does indeed... they're trying as hard as possible. Emil set up that program to get their systems back online as quickly as they could. So... yes, the various weapons of the blockade are hot, but before they actually fire, the Beowulf gets back online and is ready to act before there's anything in particular to dodge, anything like that. So, recognizing that each progress is only going to get us half a box here, what do we want to do first? Now, I should note, we're coming into this with very low ship integrity, right? Like, we only have 1. Emil is, if we're doing this all through the lens of how he's helping out here, Emil is a mechanics kind of guy. Like, he is actually good at repairing. We can try and do some repairing while under fire. Because, well, yes, they haven't actually fired yet. That's, given how long this would take, that's functionally what's happening, is he'd be repairing under fire. We have the ability to do that. I think it's worthwhile before we get into any of the following moves, because it's something he could do pretty well. So, when we last left him, Emil was clinging to the outside of the ship in his magnetic suit. Perhaps that's something that he could even, like, maybe from that vantage point, he can even see some of the damaged things that are keeping the shields from projecting as well as they could. Like, something he could do to better focus them from the outside. Well, he wouldn't really have brought repair tools out with him. Maybe it does make more sense for him to just clamber back into the ship, get his way in there. I'm not going to make a move out of that part because it's not really relevant to the combat progress as much. He clambers back in, hustles down to grab some tools and stuff, get to the shield generator, and get to work on repairing that. Now that the Beowulf is back online, he's back in radio contact with Cypher and able to coordinate a bit of a plan on this. So they figure out together, he's like, they clearly got back online too quickly. I'm going to hustle down and get the shields on so we can withstand a little bit while we figure out a better idea of how we're going to get out of this situation. So he's down there, and he's trying to help them out on getting the shields better. So we're going to make the repair move, and we're making our own repairs. So we're going to roll wits on this. And yeah, on a hit, we get a certain number of repair points. Now, because of my gearhead asset, we do get a +1 on this because we are repairing equipment or technology, and we get +1 momentum on a hit. So let's roll our wits with a +1 and get this started. See if we can help out the ship a little bit before things really get going. There's probably, during this time, at least a little bit of a barrage of small fire that the shield is holding off, while Emil and a team of people are identifying and fixing whatever damaged components aren't allowing the shields to project as completely as they should be. Or rerouting power, or we'll see. Holy shit. I wish I could be demonstrating this right now. I rolled as best as possible. I rolled a 10. I rolled a 6 on my action die with adding my 3 wits and a +1. However, this was a double 10 complication. This is a miss with a match against double 10. The repairs are not made and the situation worsens with a double 10 match. Pay the price. Okay, so a few things happen. First off, yes, the repairs do not happen. That much is clear. The situation worsens. I think it might even be fair to say that whatever they do is a complete mistake because they're in such a hurry right now. They're going to damage the ship more and make the shields go entirely offline. Something which we're going to represent by just making the integrity just immediately go down to 0. I'm going to add more problems in addition to that, but the shields, narratively, they are completely offline. They are now completely exposed to whatever fire is coming at them with no ability to withstand it. In addition to that, because this is a full double 10 complication, I'm going to say a couple more things. One, we definitely are losing. We're in a bad spot now. We are not in control. That's also clear. And in addition to that, in that time that happens, without any ability to resist this, the Blockade is going to do the first of its moves here, which is that they know that they have the Beowulf outgunned. So their first priority is not shooting it with weapons that are designed to like blow it up, particularly because they actually have some questions for the people on board. So their first kind of attack is a signature thing that the Imperium does in this kind of situation. It's known among blockade runners, or it's to people in the know, it's called black bagging. They fire a kind of like black spreading nanobot goop that strikes the target. And I think this is something that's only allowed to happen because the shields are down. Like ordinarily the shields will protect against this, but the shields go down and it allows them to indeed get off the black bagging attempt. Nanobot goop goes through, hits the ship, and then starts spreading over, like utterly, like multiplying and utterly coating the ship. Now what this does is not only does it immediately invade and screw up all of their sensors, they can't even look out the window and like just visually see where they're going. The whole point is to make it so people can't jump away because they have no ability to, like they'd be doing it completely blind. They have no ability to see where they're going. It helps make sure people don't escape so that they're all the more vulnerable. So, yeah, if we had just been in a bad spot or something, I may have given an ability to try and avoid that, but that just happens as part of the match. And yeah, so now I'm going to make us suffer the 1 to our integrity, just as like representative of the fact that the shields went down because of some kind of mistake. I'm going to claim this one, like for narrative purposes, and it doesn't really matter. You know, Emil was working on a crew. He's supposed to be good at this. The double 10 match is not representative of the fact that he screwed up. I mean, he did his best as possible. I rolled a 6 on my die. In the fray of it all, when he was issuing commands or something, like coordinating with other people, somebody misunderstood something he was saying. Somebody was in there who was fresher than they should be. They got their hands on something and like accidentally bridged a connection. There was some arcing. They got shocked away. Like that crewman got shocked away and it shorted out some kind of a system. And now the shields are out entirely. But it wasn't directly Emil's fault for narrative purposes. Anyhow, let's suffer that -1 to our integrity. Now, you know what? I'm changing my mind a little bit on that. I'm not actually going to lower the integrity. The shields are down, and that is going to affect things and like what is possible in the fiction. They're entirely down. They're shorted out. Getting them back is now going to be a more long-form repair than we have time to do right now. Particularly with them being entirely, like we had some latitude when they were up, but just not doing very well. With them entirely gone, there is no time to do that kind of bullshit. So it's those kinds of narrative effects that they pay the price, and then of course the black bagging that happened. But I'm still going to leave the integrity at 1 because the ship itself is still, it's not any closer to being battered. It hasn't been hit by anything, but we're in a bad spot now. So what happens next? Now that the black bagging goes through, everybody, you know, things are dark inside. Everybody is panicking out of like, they have no idea what's going on. They can't see the ships anymore. They're blind to what the Imperium would be doing next. They still, some of their systems are still online. Like they can still radio each other and stuff. There are communications. There's just no ability to navigate at all. So there's a lot of chatter about like, what the hell's going down? I see the shields are down entirely. What's going on there? What's going on in the generator room? And Emil is the one who has to explain like, we had a malfunction and unfortunately the shields are now down entirely. There's going to be no time to fix it, unfortunately. We have to pivot to a different tactic. Shit. I'm actually going to make a new objective here. This is going to be a not nearly as difficult one. I think it might honestly even be just troublesome. There's a new objective in this combat, which is take off the black bag. It's just a troublesome objective. I'm not gonna like re-enter the fray or anything, but this is a new thing we can make progress on. If we can resolve that, then narratively we'll be able to see again. But for now, while that's going on, it affects anything we can do against the blockade. Meanwhile, there are sitting ducks, and the blockade does indeed start firing some missiles over to try and get this ship damaged enough that it's clearly not going anywhere. Like, make enough of a display that they'll have made their point and they'll have to just surrender. Emil doesn't want that to happen, and recognizes while he's on the horn with Cypher, like Cypher shouts back at Emil, "We need to be able to see. find a way to do it. And Emil goes, he's like thinking for a moment. Wheels are turning. He goes, yeah, okay, I got it. Be ready for an incoming signal. I'm going to be your eyes and ears on the outside. I'm going to patch it through so we can try and shoot down anything they're shooting back at us before it collides. And Emil's, mid doing this, hustling, using his mobility belt to get up there. The idea is indeed, as he said, so he is going to... His computer, his personal one, is not currently affected by the black bagging. So if he can be on the outside and hook up his AR system, like just what he is looking at, have that information sent on to the people in the gun position so that they can aim accordingly. Like if his computer can set up proper coordinates, they can patch this together to at least set up a defensive system. So basically, the way I'm going to represent this is a react under fire that I'm going to justify using wits on. And I'm even going to use the tech move with it. We're going to do the whole shebang here because we're in shit city right now. Emil gets back on the outside. He's got himself magnetized while there are missiles incoming to a non-shielded ship. So like this could go very poorly for him. The missiles are coming in. He is bravely going to just work on patching himself through to get the right coordinates out so that hopefully people in gunning positions can take out the missiles before they hit the ship that he is now just standing on the outside of. It's a bold move, Cotton. But at least it makes use of some good stats. So, this is how we try and avoid getting hit by missiles. React under fire. This is a wits with a +1 that we can re-roll on a weak hit if we want to. Because we are trying to kind of configure and optimize a system here to avoid the black bagging problems. Okay, we do get a weak hit. And as usual, I think it behooves me to try and do what we can to re-roll this for a strong hit. Because if we can get that, we can get in control. And that's a huge benefit. So let's do it. We're going to make use of our tech asset to re-roll this. Wits with a +2. And now... Yes! It paid off. Okay, I was worried for a moment because the challenge dice were pretty high. But we did overcome it. We have a strong hit. So we succeed. We're in control. We take +1 momentum. And most importantly, that thing I just said, we are in control. So the system is set up. Emil's on the outside, bravely just watching as like these missiles are coming in from various directions. He knows that he has everything set up, but he's just taking on faith right now as he is, locking his vision on and seeing as, at least from his vision, things are being identified and coordinates are going in there. He's taking it on faith, kind of doesn't want to look as they get closer and closer. But then whoever is manning the guns, in fact, let's just say for the purposes of narrative convenience, coming in on comms, we hear Vert come in and say, "Got you covered, buddy," as he like blasts a few out of the sky. You tag him like that and I'll take him out. So we're in control. Now, we need to start making progress on some things. It's less important, I think, at the moment that we take off the black bag, even though that would be nice. That would allow us an opportunity to like it's going to be really hard to actually escape without being able to see where we're going. Like Emil's targeting system like this, the kind of makeshift targeting system is one thing. It helps for that, but it's not going to help them like make jump coordinates. Now, I think while we are actually in control here, this would be a good time to try and get some amount of progress while we can, because who knows, we might lose this and it could be a while. We've described how this is a ship that is noteworthily like well armed. It's got some heavy weaponry. So I have given it the heavy cannons asset just to represent, like we lost access to our med bay from the starship, from the Stardust, but this ship would definitely have the heavy cannons module. So I've given it that. And I think because Emil is functioning as the targeting system right now, and like where he's looking is basically dictating, like he can kind of highlight spots to hit and send that over to Vert. He kind of is aiming the cannons, and when you aim your cannons and use them to strike, I get to choose one. We can either do a strafing run, which would add +1 and add +1 momentum on a hit, or we can focus fire, which marks progress on just any kind of hit, but we lose momentum -1. I think that we're actually going to do this as a strafing run. As Emil tries to like show different targets on a couple of the ships to just make a big impact and take them a little bit by surprise, the fact that their ship even is moving. Because as far as they know, this is a black bag ship. It's too dangerous to move around at all, usually. And it still is definitely dangerous, but this is what kind of takes the blockade by surprise as we do it. And considering this is all still at close range, I'm going to need that +1. So let's do it as a strafing run, because this is an iron move. It's not enough of a distance yet. Let's just try and make them back off a little bit. Once they realize, like, oh, these heavy cannons actually still will come out. They can target us. Maybe that'll shift this a little bit. And if nothing else, we can mark some progress while we have the opportunity. So we're doing an iron move with a +1. And let's see what happens. Come on. Work with me here, dice. Okay, we get a weak hit. And that +1 made all the difference. So we get to mark progress twice, but you expose yourself to danger. You are in a bad spot. Now, one nice thing, we did get a hit. So I get to add one more momentum. We're up to 5 now. And importantly, we get to mark progress twice, which means we have 1 full box of progress on making it past the blockade. Hooray! It's still impossible to get any kind of hit on getting out of this, but we're getting there. Unfortunately, we're in a bad spot. But hey, you know, we had to make... I feel like it was still the right move to make use of that while we could. It definitely peppers them a bit. The problem is that makes it all the more clear that they're like, okay, it's time to... This thing needs to be taken... It needs to be taken down. So they increase the volley and start heading... They start aiming it towards... I think as far as exposing myself to danger, they recognize that, like, the missiles are too slow. The gunners are able to take them down since they're able to coordinate their fire to take out missiles before they strike. Somebody over there is smart enough to get a visual on what's going on. You know, at first they had no idea that there was anybody on the outside of the ship. They're confused. Like, how is this ship able to see and react to anything? There's probably all sorts of commotion over on there about, like, is the black bag not working and all of that? And then somebody on the ship recognizes, no, look at that. Enhance. And they see Emil on the outside of the ship. And they recognize what's going on. Some tech person over there is like, there are your eyes right there. He's clinging to the outside. If we take him out specifically, they're blind again. And he is exposed. There's no shield. So, this actually isn't going to come towards the ship. They're going to do some just small, like, they're going to do some laser fire that ordinarily would not have much of any impact against the... It would not have a high impact against the ship itself, but it's super fast, and it can't be shot out of the sky. It's just like laser fire that comes over, and it's being targeted at Emil. Now, it's not quite precise enough, so, like, things are moving around. It's hard to just score a direct hit on Emil, but... That's definitely the stakes right now, as laser fire is coming in towards him. The cannons cannot help him. He needs to avoid this just personally. So I think in this case, it very much behooves him to just... He's making use of the mobility belt that he's got on to try and just rocket away faster than... Like, ordinarily a person just would have no ability to dodge this, but with his belt and everything, he's going to try and just, like, blast off away from the ship enough to, like, avoid the laser fire and also... When he's not up against the ship, when he's just in the blackness of space, there might be a little bit less in the way of contrast to really identify him. So it might be harder for them to target him in the future. So he is going to basically just demagnetize and blast away from the ship, trying to not get too far away as they move about so that they can hopefully pick him back up when the time comes. Like, he's taking on a lot of faith right now as he gets disentangled from the ship. Let's see how this works. I'm going to give myself the +1 from the mobility belt as we make an edge move, reacting under fire to all this laser fire coming in. Let's see what we got. All right, a strong hit! Even against some high challenge dice, they came to play. I rolled a 6, so my mobility belt still works. I succeed, and I'm in control. Take +1 momentum. They're not familiar with the never say die attitude of Emil Spencer. So Emil blasts off away from the ship, and indeed, they lose him in the blackness of space. They're confused now, because Emil is still, he's staying close enough that he's still able to just barely, like, it's getting a little bit crackly, his connection to the Beowulf, but it's still present. It's a little bit on more of a delay, but he's able to still get the cannons targeted in just right. But let's see. So we could again try and make use of just being in control, just try and do more blasting, but I want to move the narrative forward a little bit more. I have this idea. So Emil is out there, and I want to establish something between, like, Emil knowing about starships and the Beowulf being very familiar with, like, working against the Imperium. They know some of their tactics and stuff. Between all of this knowledge put together and them being in comms together, they know collectively that one of the things that makes the Imperium blockade so dangerous, any real like minor fleet or major fleet of the Imperium, is they can work together especially well because they're like all networked together across ships to be able to just like be in the exact right positions to outflank and outmaneuver just right and get you in traps. This makes them very dangerous, but it also makes them very vulnerable because it means that all the ships are being kind of controlled by just one of them. There's a mothership involved that's issuing all the commands to the others. And so I want Emil, while he's sitting there in space and has a moment to just kind of target them and think, he is going to have his computer and himself analyze all the evidence he can see ahead of him to try and figure out which one is the mothership. You know, down to microseconds, which one is acting first? What are any signs they can have that one of them is issuing commands or not? Can he pick up on a signal emerging from one of them? It's stuff like that, where he's going to analyze what's there, have his computer pick it up and see, like, where do things seem to be coming from? Which one is the mothership? This is going to be gaining ground on making it past the blockade with wits. Because if he can figure this out, I've got an idea that could be really cool. Which, you know, I've doomed myself. It's not going to work, but let's see. This is going to be a wits move. I've got some decently high momentum right now. I don't think I get to add anything to it, though. It's just plain wits. Let's see what happens. Okay, we get a strong hit. So I get to choose 2 of these, in addition to staying in control. So I can mark progress, which I'm definitely taking that, and I could either take 2 momentum or add 1 to the next move, not a progress move. Well, first off, let me give myself, we're up to 1.5 boxes on this. I think the momentum is going to pay off for us, because that'll get us all the way up to 8 momentum. That gives me a lot of safety net on moves that might not do so well. I think that's the better choice at the moment. So Emil is able to identify which one is the mothership. Now, the reason that I think this is we're going to use this against them, the fact that we're black bagged right now, I described it, it's kind of like this nanobot goo. We're going to try and blind the mothership with their own goo. Because if we can do that, that'll effectively blind all of the other ships. And maybe, you know, they'll just change to the next one over and it'll be the one in control, but it'll buy us some time. So Emil's been out in the thick of this goo. I'm going to roll in an oracle right now. Is there any just like on the outside of his suit that he's taken with him? Or is it all attached to the hull? So let's make that move. This is going to be just a 50-50. I'm asking the oracle. Does Emil have a sample of any of it just stuck to the outside of his suit for having been on the outside of the hull? 50-50, and it says, yes, he does. It actually rolled really low on that. That would have worked on unlikely as well. So Emil has some of that on him already. He doesn't need to try and collect it. So I guess here's the question. They're all relatively close to each other. Does Emil want to completely abandon even being in the vicinity of the Beowulf and rocket over there, or does he want them to take him over? Because even when I say that they're close to each other, they're not like close. He could probably benefit from their engines. I think it's probably for the best that why don't we coordinate a pickup, and that way the Beowulf gets to keep their vision as well. So Emil's on comms about this plan. It's like, that one's the mothership right there. We're gonna try and blind them. You just need to fly over there, get me close enough. I'll spread their nanobots onto them. And if anything really goes wrong, we just have to fly super close and just kind of scrape off against them. But just get me as close as you can. Use this nav data to the best of your ability. So let's see. How are we going to make this a move? And ideally, one that I can use a nice stat on, because it's still got a long way to go. Why don't we... I do think this is a clever plan, a clever way to gain leverage with it, which is a wits move. I would also argue I am making a move to disrupt an electronic system, which is part of a tech asset. I may not be doing it in my ordinary fashion, but we're still using our tech knowledge to... we're using all sorts of components to get into place and be able to disrupt their vision and everything. So I'm going to give myself my tech +1 and the ability to reroll because I'm going to be nice. Because once again, we are in such a bad situation right now. I got to be as nice as I can. We got a long way to go. Even though it's going well right now, long way to go still. So let's do it. Let's gain ground with a +1 using our tech asset. on a little bit of a stretch maybe, but whatever. We'll see if I even need it. Well, I do have a weak hit, so it gives that opportunity. Now, here's the thing. Do I want to risk it? Because a weak hit does still make me stay in control. And I've only got one more momentum I could get. So it would only be, I'd be using Mark Progress and +1 on the next move would be the difference. This is one case where I think I just don't even want to risk it. Because I want to make sure there's no chance we don't stay in control. So we're gonna mark progress. We'll finish out this second box on making it past the blockade, as indeed we're able to blind the mothership. And it's clear for a moment, like the other ships, there had been a little bit of a constant barrage of fire as they that keeps getting knocked out with the cannons. They kept trying to reposition themselves as Beowulf started coming closer based on Emil's guidance. But then suddenly it stops. And at least for the moment, they're not able to coordinate effectively. Now, I'm going to say that this used up, like, all of the nanobots Emil had on himself. They already spread over. In order to, like, try and blind all of them, he would have to scoop up some more first. Like, he'd have to make that happen. Because I think in this process, like, he has the Beowulf get him just, like, close enough to just, like, shunt himself over to the mothership, magnetize onto there, and spread the nanobots. And he has to wait while that happens. He is not currently on the Beowulf right now. Maybe that's part of why it's a weak hit, not a strong hit. Like, they're separated, but they're close to each other. I think in this moment, why don't we use this opportunity while they're blind to try and take out one of the other ships? Emil's going to target the, obviously not the ship he's on. We're going to target the heavy cannons to strike against one of the other ships in the blockade. And we're once again going to do this as a strafing run. He's kind of hit various of the ships while they're blind. So there's going to be Iron with a +1 and +1 momentum on a hit. Plus, we have a lot of nice high momentum right now anyway. Let's see what we can do. Iron +1. That, however, is a miss with a match. I did it like as poorly as possible. Rolled a 1 on that, and it was a double 9 match. The fight turns against you. You are in a bad spot and must pay the price. I think the reason this might happen, like obviously we're not able to connect very well. They're able to change which ship is in control quicker than we're able to make any kind of real damage with our guns. And for a double 9 match, here's what I'm going to say happens. This strafing run gets a little bit far from Emil. His targeting, it's a little too weird to try and navigate and do this full strafe when Emil is far off like this. The computer isn't able to compensate for it well enough, fast enough. We're going to say that the Beowulf accidentally rams straight into one of them, completely unaware, because they just didn't see where they were going. They ram into one of the ships and get heavily damaged. I feel like it's going to be in like the back of one. Like it's some area that the other ship is plenty heavily armored against. And the Beowulf hits it awkwardly, like in a spot, particularly with no shields, that it really causes some damage. I am going to say that this is, with it being a full double 9 match, it hits it really hard. We're going to make this a -3 move. Because I think it like hits it hard, and then like the other ships start firing on it. It takes some massive damage during this. So let's suffer that now. So we're withstanding damage. -3 for major damage, which means we have to lose 2 momentum because I went all the way down past 0. We are at 0, so we do have to roll our +0 integrity and find out what happens. We get... Okay, it's a miss with a match, but I could burn my momentum to make it a strong hit with a match, which would mean, 1, I wouldn't have to come up with another match complication, but it would mean that we could importantly take that +1 integrity back because we're not yet battered. I think this is probably worth it, because otherwise we're going to really spiral down the drain. I'm going to burn the momentum here. It brings us back. We lose 5 momentum for this, unfortunately. It really worked our way up, but it's okay. We get to get 1 integrity back as we take this hard hit, but maybe what this represents is there are various other crew personnel that are maybe also doing what they can from the inside to like patch together systems, reroute to backup ones, and maybe even people on the outside of the hull in their own suits that are they're just like welding things back together, patching up holes. Emil's not the only one willing to get on the outside. They have crew that are also trained for this sort of thing. So they're working on it. They're bringing the integrity back up. It takes the bravest among them because there are no shields, but they get some of that integrity back. Now, unfortunately, we are currently in a bad spot, and we weren't even able to get more progress on that strike. So what's the next thing that comes in? Well, Emil is in a bad spot because he is completely separated from his ship. And why don't we say that in addition to the Beowulf having people that are willing to get on the outside of the ship, so does this blockade, and they recognize what's going on. They put together, they got some smart people over there. This is not their first combat, and they recognize, yeah, that dude that was on the outside, the only way that they blinded us, he must have come over, he's on the outside of the hull. So a small group of other crew people from the inside of this blockade ship, the Imperium ship, they come out on the hull as well to be able to just do small arms fire against Emil in space. They've got their own laser pistols and stuff. Ordinarily, their ship might do something with a small turret or something firing bullets, but they can't see right now. The whole thing is covered in goop. They done black bagged themselves. And while, yes, one of the other ships is in direct control over their maneuvering around the Beowulf and all of that jazz, they still don't have the vision on where is Emil on the ship. That's going to take somebody just there and present. So a few of these people come out and they start just firing their, it's all kind of in slow motion of just the awkwardness of maneuvering in space, but they are trying to shoot at him with their small arms. Emil is going to try and we're just going to start at first with him just dodging that all, right? It's just going to be mobility belt maneuvering. He's going to try and get to a position behind one of those turrets I was talking about that somebody might have ordinarily fired at him with it just does small arms fire. Emil is it's pretty big. It's like this little dome that somebody could be on the inside moving the turret around. Emil is going to try and dodge his way behind that so that he can take cover behind it, and then from there, maybe even try and use it for himself if he's lucky. But first things first, let's react under fire. So edge of the +1, and we get... All right, a strong hit. You succeed and are in control. Take +1 momentum. Oh, thank God. So Emil, indeed, he dodges his way behind this turret, and he is going to try and, with his computer, jack directly into this turret so that he can just, from the outside of the ship, move it over and just start, just fire it on all the people that are on the hull with him, or maybe even have his computer control that, because right now he's in comms with the Beowulf trying to figure out if they're okay, and it's way too crackly now. They're doing their own thing. They're far away. I don't know if they know exactly where he is. They're far enough away, he doesn't even want to try and jump over to them. But first things first, he just needs to take care of these people trying to take him down. So let's roll this as... We're going to do this in a couple of moves here. He jacks in with his computer, and he's going to try and bypass whatever protections they have against being able to do this, hack his way in to be able to just have control of this turret. So it's going to be our favorite wits with a +1 tech move as we try and take over this outside turret. However, we do get a miss here. Your foe gains the upper hand, the fight moves to a new location, or you encounter a new peril, you're in a bad spot and must pay the price. So Emil is in the process of trying to just get this hooked up so he can just start shooting them. He's not fast enough. Their protections are pretty good, and I'm going to go with the fight moving to a new location where they recognize what's going on. One of them comes over and just tackles him down. We're going to broad stroke this a little bit. It's less moment to moment. They're carrying him inside of the ship itself because they don't want him to be able to give any kind of signal over to the Beowulf. They know he is their eyes right now. There's a weird kind of conjugation in that sentence, but I think it all makes sense. So if they haul him in, he can't do that for them. So they bring him inside of this blockade ship. He's in a very bad spot, though at least it wasn't a miss with a match. I have to pay the price. I feel like it would make sense for this to be a momentum loss. Not a huge one, but it's definitely getting in the way of our building up and being able to do well. I'm just going to cost myself the 1 momentum. So Emil, he's inside of this ship right now, and he's just a stronger person than he is, or maybe at least a little bit, is trying to hold him in. Emil is going to try and break free by just activating his mobility belt and just slamming this guy into the ceiling and hopefully be able to throw him off by not expecting that. So he activates his belt. This is going to be, I had originally thought that this would be an iron move, but reading it Reacting under fire with iron is about blocking or diverting with force or taking the hit. I'm not really doing any of that. Really, the thing I am most doing is edge. Like, this is fleeing, dodging, getting back into position, or taking cover. This is about getting back into position. So we're going to make this an edge move with the +1 with my mobility belt, as Emil tries to use it to throw them off and escape and get back on the outside so he can hopefully get back. Because he's not, like, far inside of the ship, but he has been dragged inside. And as he struggles against it, he finally recognizes he has this opportunity. And let's see what happens. Edge of the +1. All right, we get a strong hit. And again, I did not roll a 1 on my move, so the mobility belt still works. We succeed and we're in control. Take +1 momentum. So we get that right back. Emil is indeed, he breaks free, he slams the guy into the ceiling of this corridor, which throws them off, and he has his own control right now to be able to do something. Now, here's the question. They have done perhaps a disservice to themselves they have brought him inside the ship, and Emil is not especially in contact with the Beowulf right now. What is his choice right now? Does he want to try and take over and, like, hijack this ship? Or does he want to just get out of here? Because, like, there's probably a whole bunch from here. I don't know that Emil is in a good enough... Like, cool as that sounds, I want him to just take over this blockade ship and use it against them, you know, ram it into the other ones, all of that. I don't know if he can do that from the inside especially well without just, like... They're going to take him down. And he's already at 0 health anyway. There's just too many in there. So I think I'm instead going to try and successfully... Like, I'm going to say he's back on the outside of the ship as a result of that move, because he was successful at fleeing and getting back into position. So he is on the outside, out of the hatch again. I think what we're going to try and do here... I'm going to make a check my gear move really quickly, because I believe we still somewhere have our... somewhere we've modified a smart gun system to be able to work basically like a torch. A welding torch. I want to see if I have that on me. So we're gonna check our gear here. I feel like it's a little bit of a stretch of the imagination, but he comes prepared. He knew this was going to be a challenge. So checking our gear, and we've got we have 5 supply right now, so this will probably go all right. Now, no matter how this goes, I'm not going to have it affect whether or not we're in control, because this is more or less like just asking the Oracle something. Let's see. So, like, we get a weak hit, which means we have it, but we have to either sacrifice resources or lose momentum. I'm just going to lower our supply by 1, because it was doing really well. So my supply is now 4, but indeed, we do have this gun that is modified that we could use it like a torch. And Emil is going to try and just, like, weld shut quickly the hatch that allows them to pursue after him. Try and keep them from just catching back up. So this is going to be a gain ground move with... Let's see, what would make the most sense here? If I'm being honest, this one very well might be an iron move. This is... Like, we're kind of gaining leverage with force, sort of. Powering through, making a threat. It's somewhere, but here's the problem. It's either my worst stat or my best stat. It's either that or it's coordinating a plan, studying a situation, or cleverly gaining leverage. I think I've been nice to myself a little bit too much with wits. I'm going to just make myself do the iron, but... I am also going to say that we are modifying equipment. I'm going to make this a gearhead move as we try and just weld this shut, which means I get to add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. So Emil tries to shut them out from following after him, or at least make them have to go a different way. Stall them for now. So we're going to gain ground, iron with a +1. Okay, and we do get a weak hit on it, so we stay in control. Mark progress, take 2 momentum, or a 1 on our next move. God, just every little bit of progress we can make counts so much. But I do need momentum. Whatever. Hopefully I'll get it again with some better moves. I'm going to take the progress while we can get it. We're now at 2.5 boxes. I mean, we have a 10% chance of getting at least a weak hit. That's something. If we were to try and just flee right now. Narratively, it wouldn't make any sense, though, so let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Emil's on the outside. He has a moment here where he can maybe try and do something. I mean, he could try and... Maybe he could hack the ship from the outside if he can get a good hiding spot or something, but eventually they're going to meet him out here again. It's only going to work for him for so long. So maybe it's worth it to just try and get back in touch with the Beowulf, because that's his ride out of here. He doesn't want to be stuck. I guess he could he could still try and like blind the other ships. Like he could maybe do the same thing where it's like, okay, what's the mothership now? And maybe we should do that. Yeah, so we're in control. It uses one of our good stats. Emil's going to, again, we're going to use wits with tech to try and identify what's the next mothership. I'm not going to let myself just do this over and over and over again, but considering I'm not always in control, I feel like it's okay to do it sometimes. Wits with a +1 as we try and identify the new mothership to blind them once again. All right, we get a weak hit that I could reroll for a strong hit. And you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go against what I said last time. I'm going to risk it. We're going to do the reroll, even though I don't want to lose control. Let's see. Okay, it worked out. It turned into a strong hit. So I will mark progress, and we need to build momentum again. I'm going to take the 2 momentum. So we have our 3rd box on making it past the blockade, as Emil is able to identify this is the next mothership. Now they're far enough away from each other again. He doesn't want to just make the jump over. The Beowulf has just been meanwhile kind of trying to get its feet back under it, doing what it can to I can't really even dodge fire right now because it's too blind, because we haven't done anything to take off the black bag. So Emil tries to get back in touch with the Beowulf. He's going to try and get the Beowulf to come over, navigate back over to this ship blindly, as he sends that information over to them. Let's have Emil... I'm just going to do this as an edge move, as this is about maneuvering. And while, yeah, I'm benefiting from the situation that Emil set up, I'm not going to give myself the full advantage of wits or tech or anything like that, because the connection is not that strong right now. And even Emil can't see that well exactly where the Beowulf is. So they're just kind of more on gut and everything and communication, doing a little more to the left, a little more just kind of telling them where to go more than just having the nice computer system. Their connection is too broken. So we're going to roll edge and see if we can get Emil back on his ride. Do I want to use my mobility belt on this to meet them out in space? I've been going back and forth on that. I need every +1 I can get to stay in control here. Screw it, yeah. Emil is going to kind of meet them for the final approach by using his mobility belt so that they don't have to get too close to this ship just visually. He just needs them to get close enough that he can launch off and get towards them. So edge of the +1, but risking my mobility belt, and we get... Okay, a weak hit, which incidentally the belt wouldn't have mattered, but it means we stay in control. So progress, momentum, or +1 on the next move. I mean, as always, if I can only do one, it's got to be... I feel like it's got to be progress. No, you know what? I'm going to take the momentum right now. Get us up to 6. Because while we're in control, we're going to try one more time to just Emil is back where he can actually coordinate well and be in communications with them. He's going to get the targeting once more to while they're moving over towards the mothership, he sets up a plan with them to be a distraction by firing at some of the other ones. We do another strafing run that brings them closer to the mothership so Emil can hopefully go over and blind that one. So let's do the strike move, and we have a nice high-ish momentum to help us out of a jam with it. So we're doing strafing run. We add +1, take 1 momentum on a hit. Oh, you know what we could do? Why don't we take this opportunity to before Emil does the strafing run, first, during kind of the moments of confusion, he gets the ship to pilot farther away. We're no longer just the distraction is get far away so we can do this from edge. When we're up close like this, it's been limiting a little bit of how many cannons and which ones can be using because they just don't have the right angles. Let's go far away so we can actually do edge on this one. Fire at them from a distance, and then we'll move in for the next thing. So edge with a +1 this time, changing the fiction a little bit. And sadly, not only was this a miss, but I don't have quite high enough momentum to even turn it into a weak hit. The fight turns against you. You're in a bad spot and must pay the price. We have not been doing well on trying to just shoot at them. We're too blinded and everything. So we're in a bad spot. I think we're not even able to get all the way out to where we want to take the fight to a new location. Because the new mothership, which can see, gets the other ships in the way. We make it so Emil has to they kind of block him off, and he has to keep rechanging the angles and stuff, and it's rocketing him around. And we're going to say that the result of the maneuvers the ship has to do to avoid just slamming into like an obstacle that they've coordinated together, it like throws Emil off. Like they centripetally, the force just as they spin away, it throws Emil off the ship. And maybe some of the other crew members as well that don't have mobility belts. It's Emil and some of the other people that were working on trying to just repair the worst of the damage on the ship. They get thrown into space. And, you know, rockets and stuff are coming in again, trying to target the Beowulf. They were still in close quarters. Emil is going to react to this. We see the rockets coming in. He's not on the Beowulf. I think, okay, this is, we're going to go right into our pulpy roots here. It's been too long since I've done something just like crazy cool. We're going to do like some Legolas move here. So Emil's out in space, right? There's a rocket coming in from one of the other ships. Emil has a magnetized suit. Emil is going to try and magnetize his boots onto the body of the rocket so that he can surf the rocket basically and use his body and mobility belt to reorient it and get them to try and shoot themselves. But first things first, it's just a maneuvering thing. Like, can he get on the rocket? This is fucking nuts. This is his react under fire, edge move, +1 from the mobility belt, definitely. We're going to have to make use of that. As he tries to get in position to be able to move the rocket manually. Edge, +1. Weak hit. You avoid the worst of the danger or overcome the obstacle. Oh, and I can't quite burn momentum to turn it into a strong hit because we're reacting under fire. Weak hit's not good enough. You avoid the worst of the danger or overcome the obstacle, but not without a cost. Make a suffer move -1. You stay in a bad spot. You know, it kind of makes sense. I'm going to suffer a little bit of... Honestly, I could see this making sense with hell. Like, it's not like the missile explodes or anything. The rocket doesn't explode. But in order to do this, Emil kind of has to... He hits onto it hard and awkwardly. Like, it hurts. It's minor. It's just a -1 to his health. But his health is at 0 right now. So that means we do... Oh, I guess that means it's going to be a momentum loss anyway. I was going to say I could have done it to just momentum. And so at that point, I kind of might as well. Or I could lose it from anything. Momentum, spirit, supply. I'd have too hard of a time justifying supply without losing something specifically. All right, whatever. We're going to lose momentum here because it's definitely a bit of a setback what's going on. Like he's struggling to get it to move. Like it's harder than he anticipated, and not harder than any realistic person would anticipate, to change how this missile is moving. He doesn't have a lot of time. Running out of opportunity. He definitely can't just physically move it well enough. He's going to try and reprogram it really quickly to try and avoid being on the missile while it blows up, as he's just rocketing towards the Beowulf. We are going to react under fire with our wits and our tech asset. Hack this missile and then surf it. Okay. This is going to be wits with a +1. Our mobility belt is not helping with this. And we get... Okay. We have a weak hit, but this is our tech asset. We could go for it. And considering that's the difference between being in a bad spot or not, I am going to go for it. So, wits with a +2. Strong hit with a match instead. Very much worth it. I love that reroll thing on my tech asset. I may allow myself to do it too willy-nilly, but boy do we need it. You succeed and you're in control. Take +1 momentum. We get it right back. Emil, right before the missile is going to make contact, all the other people are like frantically on the radio who can tell what's going on, just like, are you fucking... He like buzzes the tower with this missile instead, as at the last moment he's able to get control and change where the missile is going based on where he is looking with his own just AR. He recontrols where the missile is going, and he's going to use it as a ride as well to get himself close. It's his vehicle to get over to the next mothership, and he's going to attack the mothership. But let's see, what's the order we want to do this in? I guess I could do this as a strike, benefiting from mobility by just like his mobility belt kind of lets him do the micro adjustments to like change the rocket. Well, that's really the tech that's doing that, but okay, you know what? We've had too many problems getting too separated from the Beowulf. I'm not going to do that. He reorients the missile, gets it aimed at the new ship, because at the very least it'll give them something to have to deal with. He aims it at the mothership, disengages his boots, and lets the missile just go. And that's going to be a strike move while Emil tries to just get back on the Beowulf. So we strike. This is going to be with edge, but this is not going to benefit from the heavy cannons because this is a different thing. Edge, no +1, and we get... Oh, sorry, this is a match. I forgot to give myself... It was just a double 1 match, but I should get something from it. I'm just going to say that in the process, Emil actually steered the missile to recollect all the other people that were thrown off into space. That'll be the minor match of the +1. He goes around them with the missile enough to be able to hurl them back towards the ship, get them remagnetized. He recollects the lost people. There weren't a lot of them, but there were a few there. That's the match. Now on the strike, I actually got a strong hit. You mark progress twice. You dominate your foe and stay in control. They were not seeing that one coming. Defending against their own missile? No, not at all. They did not anticipate this move. We are up now to 4 boxes on Make It Past the Blockade. Actually started to do a little bit of damage to them. I'm starting to consider whether or not we should just try for it. If we can get... Oh, sorry, we're up to 5 boxes. If we can get 1 more, we'd be gravy. And we've still never taken off the black bag. So maybe... Okay. Emil is back on the ship. Maybe we should actually focus while we're in control on not being blind so that we can actually jump out of here. Because right now, we'd be jumping blind. Who knows where we'd wind up? It could be a catastrophe. We have a moment here. The mothership's been hit. Emil is back in an area where he can take out some of the small arms fire based on just his kind of anti-missile array that he's set up here. While that's in progress, we're going to try and... We're just going to try and out-hack the nanobots, basically. They're blinding the systems, but if he can jack back into... I think Emil, for the time being, he jacks into some port on the outside of the ship to get access to the computers again, and try and just out-hack the nanobots that are blinding their sensor array. Let's do it. This is definitely wits with a +1 and the tech asset. Or, well, that is the +1. But anyhow... We're trying to gain ground specifically on taking off the black bag. While we have this moment, we get... All right, get a strong hit without needing to re-roll. So we'll mark progress on it. And we're going to do 2 more momentum, getting us all the way back up to 8. So he's doing what he can. He's some of the systems are back, kind of, but the nanobots, it's he's kind of actively holding them off at all times. They keep regrowing back. They're self-replicating. So we can disable some of them, but others just come back and retake over. So it's just sort of a stopgap solution. He would have to be very actively holding them off the whole time. So Emil gets a little bit frustrated and says, he communicates to the rest of the ship, shut down the systems again. I'm going to blast them with EMP. Just kill all the nanobots in one go. Thankfully, they already have him set up. They already have the ship set up to be able to come back online pretty quickly. We'll see if it's fast enough. So this is going to be, let's see. He's gaining ground in this case with, it's kind of just force, I guess. This is an iron move, but he gets to use his firebrand. So I'm going to take 1 away from that, but I get to add a +2 to this move. So iron with a +2 as we gain ground against the taking off the black bag. And we get... Ooh, it is a miss on 10 and 8, so even with my 8 momentum, I can't actually just burn it and succeed on this. Your foe gains the upper hand, the fight moves to a new location, you encounter a new peril, you're in a bad spot and must pay the price. Now that was specifically against trying to EMP these dudes, but I guess let's just say that takes long enough. Emil is not able to get all of them, and then the nanobots, they just replicate back. There's still enough of them that the systems are still... not working well. The systems are still just spotty. They can't really see through them. And in that time that it takes the Beowulf to try and get back online after he does EMP, the other ships have come back into they're no longer thrown off by our own missiles coming back at us, and they are coming in to just... Let's see, what would be their new tactic? I want to change it up a little bit, not just be and then they fire more stuff. Maybe it's time for... Maybe one of them send over a boarding party. Because they recognize so much of this problem is indeed due to people here on the outside of the ship. Why don't we do that? So during this whole process, one of the Imperium ships comes over, and on like the opposite side of the Beowulf, they drop off a boarding party, kind of like stealth. They do it quickly and unnoticed. They just do a flyby, and these people like jump off, magnetize over onto the belly of the Beowulf. And now, after all this time, that like over comms, we recognize like, wait, there's something going on. Who is? We seem to be taking damage from an unknown source, because they're over there just like manually with like cutting torches and stuff, just marring the shit, like damaging things physically on the outside of the ship, trying to just work on cutting off the engines on the back, making it so they just physically just can't operate. I think there's a recognition that there's a lot of chaos here, and certainly in a straight up fight, they're never going to win. They're just completely outnumbered. So the thought is maybe just take this moment. Sure, they're cutting into the engines, but maybe we can just be faster. If we can just run this blockade to get back into position, just try and get far enough out that maybe we've got try and get us near the sun. Emil highlights that sun that they hid behind on their way in. We can try and manipulate and get back over to there. It's just going to be too hot for anybody to be on the outside, and we might even be able to just cook the nanobots. That's the plan that comes together. So we're going to react under fire with Edge to just try and like get there before these people on the outside have an opportunity to make it through and actually cut the engines. Meanwhile, it's a big gamble because they're sending everybody else on the inside to not deal with them because it's going to get too hot. So Emil does this. He's the last one in because he's got to like make sure the ships can see where they're going because they're still blinded. But we're going to react under fire with Edge. Thankfully, I've got a nice high momentum. Oh, actually, it occurs to me. I never fully paid the price for entering the bad spot. Let's do this as... I'm actually going to make it so that, like, I'm going to lose 2 to supply. The reason being that in the process of trying to cut the engines, like, they do a lot to cut fuel lines and stuff. There's, like, a big-ass leak that's just putting all kinds of fuel directly... Like, we're losing a lot of our fuel, so it's going to be hard to make a long journey. We'll just say that real quickly. And now let's do that react under fire move I was saying. So Edge, this is not going to be with any kind of pluses on it. Let's see how it goes. All right, we have a strong hit. I didn't even need to use momentum, so we get +1 momentum. We're all the way maxed out at 9. We succeed and are in control. So indeed, Emil gets them close enough to the sun, and it burns up the people on the outside who can't do anything about it. The boarding party can't keep cutting into the engines. And I'm going to take that success as... Well, I guess we don't get to mark progress. This was reacting under fire. I was going to say I was going to do it on the nanobots, but we can't do that. We're in control, though. We've got to start thinking about maybe just blasting out of here and doing our calculations. Got pretty good odds right now, and I don't want to lose that, but we got high momentum, so I'm going to push it a little bit. Let's see if we can just take off this black bag. So they're blind. They don't have any sensors of them. They can tell ships' internal just like temperatures, and they're using that to base it on how close are they to the sun, trying to burn it off. This is very much about having to study what little things they have as best as possible. So it's going to be a wits roll to do this right. And to best determine, like, yes, that's been long enough, the nanobots should be done. Because Emil has to be looking at the systems to see, like, are they getting back online? I am not going to give myself the tech move on this, but it is going to be a wits move. So let's see. Gain ground with wits. We're kind of far enough away from the rest of the blockade right now that we've got a moment of peace as they're thrown off by the sun, just kind of like before. All right, we get a strong hit. So we will mark progress, and I get to add 1 on my next move because we're maxed out on momentum, so there's no use taking that. So all right, we've burned off a good deal of the nanobots. And I want to take decisive action against that to like officially blast them all, like make them just no longer a thing, make them not replicate. Let's see, what would be the decisive thing that I do to make that official? Let's say that, okay, so they invaded a lot of the systems, and some of them have been protected from nanobots just out of like, there were systems that were just shut down because if they're powered on, the bots can like invade them and screw them up in a like permanent sense. So there were some things that they kind of locked the bots out of by just keeping them off. And they don't know officially because they're too close to the sun to be able to really look like, are the bots gone or not? They're going to try and officially power it on and see like, does this get invaded? So they power everything back on to see like, was this enough? We're going to roll against that. So we've got 6 progress on taking off the black bag, and we get Okay, we get a strong hit. It was a 3 and a 5. Nailed it. So they are officially gone. We can see again, our sensors are there. We have a +1 on a next hit. And it can't be a progress move, so we might as well make use of that. Maybe try and score one more strike on the blockade to like just get a little bit of firing behind us now that they can see again, Emil doesn't even need to be on the outside. Let's do this. Let's do one more strike and to just buy us some time as we spin up and get ready for some jump coordinates. And so like the cannons are making that possible. Maybe Emil even takes one of them now that he's on the inside. Joining up with Vert to just like coordinate them. We're going to do this as a, I guess it's not really, we're too far away for this to really be a strafing run. I guess it would be focus fire, but marking progress on a hit wouldn't really make a difference. Is there any way I can justify this being a strafing run so that I can get that additional +1? We're kind of far away. Yeah, maybe we just kind of like do a quick loop around the sun and in our orbit, like fire it so that we're just kind of blasting all the ships in general that are chasing after us. Because I guess they're not like super far away. They're still pursuing. So we use the orbit to like do an orbital strafe on them all as we just blast at all of them while we continue while we continue calculating jump coordinates. So let's do it. Strike with a +2. This is going to be with edge because we got some distance. All right, we got a strong hit. Mark progress twice, you dominate your foe and stay in control. I don't want to risk it by going for anything else. We are up to 6 progress on make it past the blockade. We've already maxed out our momentum, so we can't do anything with that, but we dominate them all. All this fire is coming in. They were relying a lot on the fact that we couldn't see, and now that we can, like, Emil was helping as best he could with his kind of makeshift situation, but now all the turrets can get in there and fire well. So, like, all the ships are being hit. They think they have their jump coordinates, and we're going to roll against make it past the blockade to just make it official. Like, do we escape them as we try and just jump out of the sector? But as for the answer to that, that's a question for next time. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I have ever been more tempted to fudge the result of rolls than during this session. Some of those times during that combat where, I'd be setting up a move where the math was really on my side. It was, maybe a wits with a +1 kind of move. By all logic, I should have been really confident in that, and then it would turn into a miss or a miss with a match. And knowing how much of an uphill battle this battle was going to be, I'd see those results on something that I had a lot of confidence was going to go well, and I felt such a strong pull to just fake it. Just say it was a strong hit, and then it'll all be fine. But I held my ground, and I said, no, you know what? Sometimes it involved me stopping the recording for a moment and just thinking ahead. I'm like, all right, what are we going to do now? And I went with whatever was there, and I feel like I'm a better person for having come out the other end that way and just gone with what it said. I'm a big believer in you don't roll the dice unless you're okay with whatever the outcome could be. Like, if you only are good with it going one way, then just say that, don't roll them. And boy, was I tested on that belief this day. If we were playing Burning Wheel, I would have at least gotten a fate point from that. And if you get what I mean when I say all of that, we should talk. I love Burning Wheel. Anyway, I mentioned back at the beginning of the episode that we were going to do another one of the prompts, which we haven't done in a long time. Once again, inspired by the wonderful submission that we got from Hungry Badger, I decided, yeah, let's do a prompt again. That was great. I'd love to see some more of those come in. So this week, I'm going to ask you to come up with a god. Now, this god does not have to necessarily fit in a sci-fi setting or this game or whatever. It could be whatever setting you want. But I'm going to give you 2 themes rather than action and a theme. And you're going to tell me about this god that you've come up with that somehow embodies these 2 themes, or at least that the 2 themes helped you think of this god. The themes are hardship and language. Tell me all about what god that you think of when I give you the themes hardship and language. Send me your ideas over at starforgedpod@gmail.com. Or if you'd like, you can give your response in the Discord post that I have for all of these episodes. Some people have done that in the past. I'll see it either way. Honestly, my preference is to get the email, but my real preference is just that you send something in. So however is convenient to you. And with all that out of the way, play me out, music.